Then I'm going to go back to participants. I am just going to take some screenshots just in case I forget to take attendance later. Then I've got a backup plan. Okay, so let's get started. I have quite a few things that I want to do today. One of them is I've got some Canvas announcements that I definitely want to go over with you about testing. So we're going to go over those first. Then we're going to finish up the Test 1 written work topics that we were going over. And then we are going to look at the next objective in the course. And we probably will finish that too. So let me just say, I do have a few announcements that I want to make sure I cover first. They are, I'm going to go to the conversation. The Test 1 review objective is due tomorrow night. That's because the test is on Thursday. The Test 1 review objective is due tomorrow night. So I'll say Wednesday night, which is tomorrow. It's a little different. It's different than what you're used to, but I think that has to do with the test. Okay? So the Test 1 review objective is due tomorrow night, Wednesday night. Did want to say that, and you do have an objective that's due this Sunday. It's on lines part 1. It should be a mostly review for you all. So lines part 1 is due this Sunday. I don't want to cram at the end of the semester, so I want to keep the course moving along at a consistent pace. And you all know you have a test on Thursday. So we do not have a remote class on Thursday because of the test. So the test is this Thursday. Test 1 is this Thursday. And we will be talking a lot about it. Our next remote class, just to be clear, is 1 week from today. Forgot my C there. Is 1 week from today. It's next Tuesday. Because I don't want anybody showing up and gee, where's the conference? So next remote class is 1 week from today on next Tuesday. So I just want to make sure I don't forget to say any of that. So let's start by looking at some testing announcements in Canvas. I'm going to get to the correct place here. I will be talking about ALEKS a little bit. So I want to go to College Algebra with Review. And I'm in the correct College Algebra with Review course. So I'm going to click on Announcements over here to the side. And let's start going through these announcements. Where to go for help? I would say go to me first. That's important. I can usually direct you somewhere else. I do have a lot of students, but I think, I can try my best to help you. And I think I can be successful because I'm the only one in NWAC that uses ALEKS. So you really want to see me first. And I definitely know the most about it. I know some of our math tutors and the peer tutors have learned about ALEKS because of my students, but please see me for help. But there are other options here for you. If you feel more comfortable with those options, you can take a look at that announcement. Uploading written work to Canvas for all exams. I will definitely come back and talk about this because I want to talk about it later since I want to show you where to go in Canvas at the same time. Let's start by looking at required for proctored testing. So here's what's required for proctored testing. This first part is what you're allowed to have when you take the exam. See Canvas announcement entitled Proctored Testing Violations and Consequences for All Course Exams. We'll talk about that announcement shortly. The only resources that you are allowed to use once the exam begins are the following. Using any other resources is considered a testing violation. A TI graphing calculator. See the syllabus for approved graphing calculators. 5 blank sheets of 8.5 by 11-inch paper. It can be notebook paper as long as I can read it. So I need to be able to read it. A copy of the Canvas announcement entitled How Do I Take My Exam/Test. So you're allowed to take one of these 5 blank sheets of paper and copy down this Canvas announcement here that has this title right before the test. I spent quite a lot of time this weekend testing the process of test taking in ALEKS. And it's not easy to test it because, you know, I have to kind of rig it up to do so. I'm not a student, so I have to rig it up to do so, but I did that and I've come up with a nice document for you all. I think you'll like it. I think it'll make the testing process much simpler and hopefully will relieve some of the stress to know what to do each step of the way. So you're allowed a copy of that. How do I take my test? You can copy it on to a sheet of paper, or if you have a printer, you can print it off on a blank sheet of paper and use it. That's why but that paper, no matter what, will be considered one of your 5 blank sheets. Initially, 5 blank sheets of paper. And a pencil. Now, let me discuss why only pencils and pens are not allowed. Pencils are what I want you to use because 2 of these 5 sheets, so 1 sheet is to copy over that announcement, 2 of these 5 sheets are for your written work. And with your written work, you're only allowed to write on one side of the paper, and we'll discuss how you may best do that. And the other sheet of written work, you can only write on one side of the paper. So to have the most options possible with showing all the written work, you want to be able to erase to get back some space if you make an error instead of lining it out with a pen. So you don't have unlimited space here. The reason for this is because I have a lot of tests to grade. I have 6 classes and they're all testing this week. So part of the reason is I've got a lot of tests to grade. And you will not see your scores until I tell you those tests are, your written work's available for viewing and your scores in ALEKS are available for viewing. So you will not see your scores. So anything you can do to help me get those tests back faster is one reason for that. But the other reason is, you know, pen, I did a lot of experiments this summer, and pen shows through on thin white paper, making it confusing to grade when it shows through the paper. So really, that's the reason why I want you only to use one side of the paper for the written work that you upload. And I want to make one other comment. That is, You want to write pretty dark with the pencil because as soon as you upload it, it may degrade a little bit in the upload, and so I can't read it as dark. You know, so if you tend to write light, when you upload it, I may not be able to read it. So you want to write dark. Certainly medium, right? Medium, at least. So the pencil is what's allowed. No pens, they show through the white paper, and you cannot recover the space with a pen. And so you don't have a lot of space. And since you are allowed those 2 sheets of paper for written work, what we do with students in the testing center in the math department is we take a sheet of white paper and we draw a line right down the middle of it. And then we turn the paper on its side, draw a line right down the middle of it, and create 4 equal-sized boxes. So that's what I would recommend that you do, and then number the first box with number 1, the next box with number 2, the next box with number 3, the next box with number 4. Do that for your second sheet of blank paper, and that's 5, 6, and 7 for your written work, with an extra box to put written work on it from that page only. So I'm not going to go from page to page with the written work. It doesn't work like that in Canvas. The way Canvas is going to show me your documents is each document is going to be separate. So I can't open both documents at the same time. So you can't take written work from page 1 and put it on page 2. So everything seems like it's working a little different in the way we live now. The following, so this is what you're allowed. You're not allowed your notes. You're not allowed any other resources except for what you see here. The following are required for proctored testing. So this, I believe, was in the syllabus at the beginning of the semester. A high-speed internet connection, close proximity to a router. I was almost panicking the other day because I had notes I wanted to upload prior to class in the morning, and my printer wasn't working, and I've had that printer for 10 years, and I'm like, oh, it's finally given out at absolutely the wrong time. I unplugged it, I reset it, all of that, and as a last-ditch effort, I literally moved right next to the router, and it worked. The wireless printer worked when I was close to the router. So that is a very important lesson to me, to be, and you've got anything important to do, be really close to the router. You're also allowed a webcam, required a webcam. You are absolutely required because a video is going to be able to be taken of you as you take your test. And the Respondents Monitor software will also take snapshots of you as you take your test. So you can't use that software or take this course without a webcam. You need a functioning microphone, internal or external, a Windows or Mac operating system, desktop or laptop. No iPads, no, other similar iPad devices, no phones. So you need a laptop or a desktop. Government issued photo ID and your NWAC ID card is acceptable. A one-time fee of $10 paid online to respondents immediately before you take your first exam. So you will pay that $10 right before you take your exam on Thursday, and then you will not have to pay for the remainder of your exams throughout the semester. Major credit debit cards and PayPal are accepted. And I would ignore this now that I've created my own documentation based on our particular ALEKS course. So anybody have any questions on what you're allowed for testing and what's required for proctored testing? Anybody have any questions? So number of questions on the test is 17. We're going to go over that in a minute. There are 17 cues on the test. There are 7 written work problems and 10 answer-only problems. I think maybe I've got a question here, or did I answer it? Oh, I've got a hand up. Jose, do you have a question, or did I answer it?
No, I have a question. The
Yes.
payment that we have to do for the $10, where do we go for that? You said it's gonna be on the NRAC page.
So you don't pay it in WAC, you pay it directly to respondents. We're going to go over that in a bit.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Let me go back. Let me see if there's any more questions here. I think there might be one. Go back to participants here. So that, Jose, when you get a chance, you can just put down your hand when you get a chance. Or if you have another question, you can leave it up. So I'm going to go back to Canvas and look at another announcement. Let's talk about proctored testing violations and consequences. Now, this is going to seem like a lot. I get that, but you're really, what's happening here is you've got everything that we want to require our students to do everything they would do if they were taking the test in a live classroom, or if they were taking the test in the live testing center at NWAC, plus more, because you don't have a live proctor present. You don't have me, and you don't have the testing center staff present. So there are more rules, even more rules to follow. So let's look at the consequences and the violations. So I've written this document from the standpoint of what are violations. Not taking an exam at home is a violation. Not complying with all directions in the Canvas announcement entitled Required for Proctor Testing, which we just went over, and we will go over uploading written work to Canvas in a little while. So we'll hit that announcement too. Not being in a quiet, private, well-lit environment, that's because a video is going to be taken of you, as well as the monitoring software is going to take snapshots of you from time to time throughout the test. Denying respondents access to your camera or computer, not presenting a valid photo ID. You are required to present your NWAC ID card or government issued photo ID. You all uploaded those to Canvas for me at the beginning of the semester, and I thank you all for that, because that's a place I can go for questions, or if your ID is a little blurry or something like that, without having to send you an email. And so I do want to say, though, you need to present that for every test, because we need proof that you are the person that you say you are for every test.
Does it need to be the same ID that you sent in?
Yes, you can do that. You can use the same ID. You should probably use the same ID.
Okay, what if you lost it?
Then you need another government issued.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know. I was like, wait, I lost that one and I haven't gotten it replaced yet.
Oh, that's okay. And I understand that. That's fine.
Okay.
You're good. So, yeah. So you want to provide an ID card. It could be different, but it has to have a picture on it. Has to have a picture, and it has to have your name, first name and last name, and they have to match my roster. And if they don't match my roster, we have an alternative. I can use your NWAC ID number, which is on every document you've ever gotten from NWAC. your ID numbers on that. And there's a place actually in Banner, which is the software we use when we go look up where you do some of your looking around in there, you know, to get your transcript and all of that. They now have all of our IDs in Banner, so you can look yours up very easily. So if I have a question, I might email you to send me your ID. Test taker photo does not match photo ID. So the photo ID is the government issued photo ID that you're going to upload. They're also going to take a current photo of you during the pre-testing process. And they're saying test taker photo does not match photo ID. Well, my driver's license is from a few years ago, you know, and we all change in a short time. And so I get it. That's why just do what they tell you to do. That's what I want you to do to not get a violation. And if it doesn't match really well, I can go by your ID. I can go by other things. We just need to prove somehow that you are who you say you are. Communicating with others during testing, not allowed. No listening devices, earbuds, headphones. Same thing in the testing center. They don't allow them. Now this one, shifting out of webcam view. It's going to happen for all of you because you're going to be bending over to write down your written work. And that's okay. I expect you to bend over to write your written work. You just don't want to shift out of webcam view for any other reason. Attempting to open another browser window, attempting to navigate away from the test, using resources other than the instructor approved resources during testing. We went over those. That's your 5 sheets of blank paper, your graphing calculator, your pencil, and a copy of that one document that you get to copy over that talks about testing process. So that's what that's talking about. No duplicate computer monitors, no having 2 or more devices connected together, no mobile devices, no watches, no music, no looking up, no food or gum. You can have a drink. That's no problem. I have no problem with that. What I saw a lot this summer when I was using proctored testing was lots and lots of face events. Students getting flagged for all kinds of face events. Don't even want to tell you what things some students put in their mouth, but we won't even go there. So I just want to mention that. So just you're welcome to have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee. We all need our caffeine. I've got some tea over there, and or your water, or something, or a Coke, whatever will help you test at your best. Leaving the testing environment. Now, I had a student do this summer. She came, so I reviewed her proctored log, her proctoring session. I saw this big, beautiful, real high back leather black chair, and I wanted to sit in it. And in the snapshots, and I saw more than one of them at snapshots where she had left, where there was nobody in her beautiful chair. And I'm like, is she sick? What happened? And she came back with what appeared to be a smartphone in one hand and a wad of paper in the other. And that was after 2 minutes. And I'm like, don't think she was sick. So I talked to our co-chair of our department, and she said give her a 0 for the final. So that's what I did. She had a very, 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 very low D in the class, and the final exam with a 0 brought her up to a very, very high D, but she still got a D in the course. So lastly, speaking out loud. So I know this, you have 2 hours for the test, but our class is about 2 hours in length. So if you visit the bathroom right before you take the test, you should be good. And hopefully none of you will get sick or anything like that. I don't want that to happen. So what are the protocol violations? If your testing session is found to violate one or more testing protocols, your grade on the respective exam will be reduced by 50%. Let's say you got a 70% on the exam. 50% is half that, which is 35 on the exam. So you don't want a 35% on the exam. In addition, you may be denied access to future exams until satisfactory communication with your instructor has been achieved. So if you have a testing violation on the first exam, I'm probably going to ask to have a private conference with you, to be in all honesty. And in addition, that's going to slow down the return of the test for all the students. So please, no testing violations. Any questions on testing violations? Any questions whatsoever? Let me just show the conversation here. Any questions on testing violations? Jose?
The no looking up part, what does it mean by that? Like, I can't look up to the ceiling, or
What does it say?
it says like not looking up. I don't know. I don't know if I read that right.
Right. You can't really look up during the test.
Okay. So like, okay. So I just can't like, okay, I get that then.
So you can look down. I mean, you can look at the screen. You don't want to look up. You don't want to have your eyes circling around the room a lot during the video or that kind of thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you can definitely focus on your test.
Okay. Yeah, that was my only question. I didn't know what it meant by that.
Well, ask questions. That's what I'm here for. I definitely want all of you to understand what's happening. So you've got your questions answered, Jose?
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions? And I think if you'll put your hands down, Jose, that would be great. Thank you. That way my participants icon doesn't have a hand, doesn't have an orange on it. So, all right, let's go on. So let's look at another Canvas announcement. We still need to look at uploading your written work. So let's do that now. And we need to look at that one special document that you get to copy over as well. So we got 2 more to go. So I'm going to go to announcements. And let's look at, let's look at how do I take, no, we'll do that last. Let's look at uploading written work to Canvas. So this has a lot of good testing information in it too, but not as precise of what you're going to see on exam day as the other one that I'm going to do last. Uploading written work to Canvas for all exams. See the Canvas announcement, testing violations. Not following all steps is considered a testing violation. That means all steps of this document. Each exam has 2 parts and will take place in ALEKS. Part 1 is worth 49 points. We'll have the 7 written work problems, each worth 7 points. So 7 times 7 is 49. So that's where those points come from. You are required to upload your detailed written work to Canvas for these problems using exactly 2 sheets of paper. You are required to do so within 15 minutes of submitting your exam. Neatly show detailed written work for problems 1, 2, 3, and 4 in numerical order on the first sheet of paper using only one side of the paper. Be sure to write dark. That's because, if anything, your work will show lighter when you upload it. That's what scanning does. It lightens the work, tends to lighten the work. And when you're taking a picture with the phone or a picture with your webcam, that also possibly degrades the darkness. So be sure to write dark. Obviously, you don't want to break your pencil. I just had to throw something in there to make myself laugh. So just as much as you can. I know this might take a little, you might be a little bit out of your comfort zone with how you write, but please just try to do your best at writing dark. Neatly show detailed written for problems 5, 6, and 7 in numerical order on the second sheet of paper using only one side of the paper. Be sure to write dark. So you want to do your problems in order. You want to number your boxes, number your problems for me, so I can easily find what is problem 1 and what is problem 2, what's problem 3, and they don't run into each other. So for example, I would, again, just remind you the way I like to do it for my students when I create, give the testing center a packet is I take the first sheet of paper, I write a line down the middle, I turn that paper on its side, write a line down the middle, and I have 4 equal boxes. That's probably a very good thing for you to do too. Just so you've got some definition as to what your spaces are. You're planning your space. Okay, so you want to do both of these. And then the rubric is 2 points if the first step, including math notation, is correct. So if you get even one step right and the math notation is correct, I'll give you 2 points. It goes then, I don't give any 3 points, so I give 4 points if about half the steps and math notation are correct. Then I give 6 points if almost all steps and math notation are correct, and 7 points if all steps and math notation are correct. So I go on, I do the 2, 4, 6, 7 rubric. Uploading written work to Canvas. You are required to upload these 2 sheets within 15 minutes of submitting your exam. Submit the sheets in order, meaning the first sheet would be problems 1, 2, 3, 4. Second sheet would be 5, 6, 7. This in blue was in our course when the first day of this course. So this is just giving information on using your computer or smartphone to take a picture of your written work. This just tells you where you go in Canvas to re-access that information. So I'm not going to go over that. To upload your 2 sheets of written work, do the following. Click on modules. That's all you need to remember. You really don't need to remember this because it's self-explanatory after that. Part 2. 51 points, so we have 100 points minus 49 points gives us 51. So we have 51 points for the other 10 problems. So 7 plus 10 is 17 problems. These problems will be graded in ALEKS. You will get the score that ALEKS gives you. You can use your last 2 sheets of blank paper for these problems. Do not upload these sheets. So let me just show you where you're going to go to upload the written work, and then I will then ask for questions. So I'm going to go into the student view. So I'm going to go click on the home page, and I'm going to pretend I'm a student, and here I am. So I am now in the student view. You enter on the home page, and here we are. The only thing you really need to remember is to click on modules, but if you don't, there's not a lot else to click on. Modules. And we can scroll down a little bit. Upload exam written work here. Click. Now, this assignment is locked until September 24th at 10:30 a.m. And why is it locked until then? Because that's when your test takes place on September 24th. But this works just like it did. At the beginning of the semester, you uploaded your ID and a sample of your written work because I wanted to see if y'all could easily figure out how to do it, and y'all did. So that was good. The only difference here is you're just going to upload them both in the same spot. I don't know if you remember back to the beginning of the semester, but you can upload multiple files. You're only allowed 2 here though. So you can upload written work, 2 files in the same spot in Canvas, one right after the other. And that's what I want you to do. So going back now. Let's leave the student view. And as we leave you, and it goes back to my view, this is what we see. Your availability in terms of uploading your written work. You are allowed to upload your written work as soon as 10:30 a.m. I don't think anybody will do so, but that's what we have. And the last moment you're allowed to upload your written work is at 2:30 p.m. You have 2 hours to take the test, so just plan. This means the first moment you can upload your written work. This is the last moment. The test will appear at the time it says it will and will disappear at the other time. So just keep in mind there appear, disappear times. So I think that's good. So anybody have any questions on uploading your written work? I wanted to be as seamless as possible. And that's why I wanted you to do it at the beginning of the semester so you would know how to do it or have your plan in place for how you're going to do it. So let's go back to Canvas, and I have one last document that I wish to present. So I want to go to announcements. How do I take my test? Now this is the one you get to use that 5th sheet of paper for. So 2 sheets are to upload your written work, writing only on one side. The other 2 sheets are for your scratch paper, so you can do your other 10 problems. And then you have one additional sheet where you can copy all of this over. So let's go through this. If you can print this off nicely. I print out of Canvas all the time. I just swipe over this. Let me see if I can do it here like this and print it off. So if you have a printer, you're welcome to do that and use that as your one sheet of paper, one of your sheets. So here's what you want to do on test day, and I think you're going to see the value in having this at your side. Okay, so let's take a look. Open the Chrome browser. You're required to use Chrome. Open Alex. Close all other applications. Otherwise, the lockdown browser is going to force you to do that later. I prefer doing it at the beginning or near the beginning. So next step, how do you access your test, or what sets off this process? You want to go to Alex and click on the main menu, the 3 horizontal line segments upper left of the screen. So let's go there now and take a look. And I'm going to pick our exact course. And then I'm going to click on Class Tools and enter Student View. So I'm in your course right now. You will see test 1 over to the side here. At least that's what it brought up for me. You have 2 hours. There are 17 questions, and it's due Thursday. That means it will disappear Thursday at 2:30 p.m. And it opens Thursday, 10:30 a.m. So you will see this. Also, you will see up next, test 1 review objective. That is due tomorrow night. It's due on Wednesday because of our test on Thursday. So it's due tomorrow night. So there's a reminder there for you. So let's go to the 3 horizontal bars. This is what that document is talking about right here. I'm going to click on that. And then to get to your test, you will click on assignments. Now it doesn't appear here yet because it's upcoming, and it may not appear in upcoming, depending. I don't know the exact rules that Alex is using for view upcoming. So that's where it will appear. I can try and see if it comes up, but oh yeah, it does, okay. So let's see what happens. This will be interesting. What's gonna happen if I click on this? Oh, it's grayed out. Can't do it. So I guess I used my one time to test over the weekend so I could actually put together this document. Anyway, you want to go and click on Start Test. And this document just tells you that. But we'll go back to that in a minute. But I do want to mention something. This assignment here, Test 1, no credit, is really, really important. If you, in this Test 1 review objective, there are 25 topics that students should have seen before. Sometimes students don't do every one of the get credit. Sometimes students don't learn every topic. In that case, if you're there are some of the if there are topics you haven't learned and those topics appear in this review objective, you're not going to see them. You're going to be missing out on test preparation by not preparing for all the topics that you will see. So that's why this Test 1 review no credit is really important, because this has all the topics in it no matter what. So I just wanted to point that out when we're here. So let's go back to Canvas. So what are you going to do? Click on assignments and then click on not Start Test. That's my other class. You're going to click on Test 1. And you saw a Test 1 there. It just wouldn't let us click on it. So that click on Test 1. And then what's going to happen is near the bottom of the screen, you will next want to click on Launch Lockdown Browser plus the webcam. Click on that, and then it's going to take you to a screen where you're going to see in the middle of the screen, Open Lockdown Browser OEM. Click on that. Now, if you have already closed all your applications, obviously you're not going to close Alex. And obviously you're not going to close a Chrome browser. But if you've closed all your other applications, you should not see this step. This is only there if you still need to close applications. At this point, you will be taken through a series of steps. I will assume that you have read all information in these steps, so take your time. These steps may be out of order. I looked through all the Alex documentation that I have and try to put it together as to what the steps would actually be. And I'm not 100% sure because I saw some inconsistencies. So this is my best guess, but they may be out of order. But I think we can assume that you're going to see all these steps at some point. Step 1, terms of use. Got to read the terms and agree to them. Step 2, webcam check. Then the $10 payment. Now, maybe the $10 payment comes first. I don't know. I couldn't test that part of it. So it's hard to say. Then additional instructions. Please read. Guidelines and tips. Please read. Student photo. That's a current photo of yourself at the time of testing. They're just going to snap a picture of you. Show ID. That's your government issued ID. So you want the software to take a picture of that. Environment check. So during that environment check, you're going to use your webcam on your computer to show your testing resources that you are using, such as your graphing calculator and that one sheet that you're allowed to have this document copied. Those are the types of things you want to show me, what resources you are using. Facial detection check, and begin exam. So I'm not 100% sure whether you have to click on begin exam here, if Alex does that automatically, but you certainly will have to click on begin exam, upper middle of the screen at some point, and then click on start, bottom left of the screen. I did see those and copied them down carefully. When finished with the exam, click on submit assignment, lower right of the screen. Click on submit assignment, middle of the screen. They want to make sure you really want to submit the assignment. Click on exit lockdown browser, bottom left of the screen. So you want to make sure you're shutting down correctly and that you haven't forgotten to do the double submit here, and that you're getting out of your lockdown browser so your computer is back and ready to go. Just a gentle reminder, upload exactly 2 sheets of written work to Canvas within 15 minutes, and you will not receive your score on this assignment until all written work for all students has been graded. Any questions on any of the announcements concerning testing? I know it seems like a lot, but have that one document by your side. I think it will help you. It's just a lot to memorize and a lot to think about. But that is where we're at now in our world, unfortunately, and I hope things get better soon. Did you have a question?
Yeah, for the environment check, is it just showing your calculator in that?
Yeah, and your room, just kind of go around your room too.
What if, because the way my desk is set up, my charger for my laptop is on the left side, and so I can't really move my laptop around that much?
Well, it's hard for me to know exactly what your setup is, I guess is what I want to see. Say, why don't you stay after class a bit and we could chat a bit more, okay?
Okay.
Okay, that'll be good. Anybody else? Thank you for putting your hand down. As soon as you submit, that's a good question, Blair. That's a good point. As soon as you submit your test twice, right? Then you're allowed to go grab your phone. You can't have it anywhere near the phone, the testing environment when you're taking your test. Does that make sense? So you got to submit your test first. Double submit. Any other questions? Okay, well, let's move on. I love that star going round and round. So makes me smile. So let's look at what we need to do. Let's first start with, we were working through the written work topics, and we need to start with topic 4 if my memory serves me correctly. So we already went through 1, 2, and 3. So let's get to number 4 here. Let me get set up and back to number 4. So with this a little too far. So let me see if I did these via pages, and I did. So we did this one, this one, this one, and we need to start here. Before I forget, let me show you where you can go in ALEKS to see the document that I am talking about right now. So you can go to this main menu, these 3 horizontal bars here, down to instructor resources, and you want to click on test reviews. Test 1 review. Test 1 review topics selected by Ann Baird. That is exactly the document I am talking about today, this document. So that's where you can go on that main menu, go to instructor resources. Let's resume talking about that document by starting with topic number 4 today. There are 7 written work topics. I got them all on 1 page each. Let's talk about this document. So the first topic that we're talking about today, solving a quadratic equation with complex roots. Now, what's really important is, let me see if I can use this. What's really important is, what is the square root of -1? Can anybody tell me what the square root of -1 is? What is that equal to?
I.
It is equal to I. Exactly. It's definitely equal to I. So that's important to know for this particular problem. You do not want to miss this problem because you do not know that. So let's take a look. This is equal to I. How do I do this? We're trying to get that off. I think I've got to maybe, nope, that opens it up. Close. I think I click, there we go. I think I've got it now. Okay, so square root of -1 equals I. Very important. And I got a few extra dots, but that's okay. And if you see, like right here, this negative sign, any negative sign that's participating in multiplication, you can write as a -1. So this could really be written as -1 times 47. So let's take a look at this problem. Find all complex solutions of 2x squared plus x plus 6 equals 0. We have a quadratic equation because honestly, we've got these coefficients times x to nice. Our terms are all coefficients, nice coefficients, real coefficients, times x to a really nice power. So every one of them is like that. So that's how, and the highest power we have is a 2. We can use the quadratic formula. If the highest power you had was a 3, you cannot use the quadratic formula. So we can use the quadratic formula. We've got descending power order. We have a 2, an understood 1, and then a constant. And to use the quadratic formula, we must have equal to 0 on one side, which we do. So let's identify our A, B, and C. A is 2, B is an understood 1, C is 6. Here's the quadratic formula. It is x equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're ready to go here. So in our case, it's equal to negative, copied that down, b is 1, plus or minus square root, b is 1. I always put this in parentheses, the number, so I don't miss putting it in parentheses when it's negative, because you likely get the wrong answer if you don't put a negative number in parentheses. So I just, out of habit, do it all the time. So parenthesis, and our b is 1 parentheses squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 6, all over 2a. So that's 2 times a, which is 2. So I always like to work with what's inside the radical first. 1 squared is 1, minus from here. 4 times 2 is 8, times 6 is 48. Do this subtraction, 1 minus 48 gives me -47. Now that negative is really -1 times 47. And the square root of -1 is I. That's why we can take this negative, because it's a -1 and we're taking the square root of it. That's why we can take it out as I. like this. And we get I square root of 47. So let's now work with all of it. -1 plus or minus. We got I square root of 47. Copy it down. 2 times 2 is 4. And we're done except for we need to enter it correctly. You also need to enter your answers correctly in ALEKS. So that's part of this. ALEKS wants us to find all complex solutions. If there is more than one solution, separate them with commas. So they want us to write this out one solution at a time. -1 plus I root 47 over 4 for the first one, comma, same thing over again with a minus sign in the middle here. And ALEKS will let you copy and paste. If you know the keystrokes to copy and paste on your keyboard, you can do that in the ALEKS software. And I've done it a lot because I want to be accurate. So I just copy this, paste it down, and all I do is change the plus sign here to a minus. Any questions on this particular topic? Any questions? So let's go on. So let's take a look at this particular topic, and I've been marking up some of these with some of my classes to make specific points. Solve a rational equation that simplifies to linear, factorable, quadratic denominators. Now, the moment I think of denominators, if there's a variable in the denominator, there's a possibility for division by 0. So you want to watch out for division by 0. So I just look at this problem, and the tip is if you take this, put parentheses around it, take this, put parentheses around it, you're likely going to get the factors of this. You can check. So that's what I did. You can see what I did. I just put parentheses around this, put parentheses around this, and I assumed that these were the factors of this right here. We're going to check to make sure that is correct, though. You don't want to make any assumptions. So if I take and multiply these two factors together, v times v is v squared. Let's do it right here. Let's multiply these two factors together. They're the same, but I think this is better, a better demonstration this way. First two, v squared, check. Outer two, minus 5v, inner two, minus 4v. That gives us minus 9v, check. Last two, negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 5 is 20, check. So I would definitely check that. And then I definitely copied the 8 down, the 1, and the 2, and the plus sign, and so we're good to go. So right now, we are just wanting to solve this equation. So what we're wanting to do, what our goal is to get rid of the denominators. And how do we do that? We start by going from left to right and copying down the first denominator in factored form. And I also wanted to make sure I put parentheses around these guys to get them to look like these factors here. So I didn't want to miss on that. So just copy down the first denominator in factored form to get your least common denominator. And then I took and wrote this up here in blue, the LCD, at this point, right now, the way it is here. After I just copied this one over, I wrote it up here. Now you can see this is going to cancel with this. This is going to cancel with this. So we aren't going to have a denominator. Of course, there's an understood one there, but we're not going to have any other denominator. Now, imagine what's going to happen with this. What are we going to do with this? We're going to multiply both sides by this v minus 4 times v minus 5. And then we're going to have multiplication, and this is going to be in parentheses, over addition, so we're going to distribute. Imagine what's going to happen when we take v minus 4 times v minus 5 and divide it by v minus 4. The v minus 4s are going to cancel, and we're going to be left with 1. So we've gotten that denominator. And when we distribute, what's going to happen when we take this and multiply it times this? The v minus 5s are going to cancel. These guys are going to cancel. So we will have eliminated that denominator. So we don't need to put anything more here, in here. You certainly don't want to have v minus 4 squared times v minus 5 squared. That's going to make the problem really complicated. So that's the best way I can explain how to find the LCD. So our LCD, the least amount that we have to use is this, to eliminate all the denominators. So now let's write out the algebra. So we're going to take the LCD right here, and multiply it times what's on this, what's right here. We're using the factored form of the denominators. Equals the same LCD, this right here, we just copied the LCD over, and in parentheses, what's on this entire side, and go from there. Now there's only one term. This entire side can be viewed as a single term. So let's cross out v minus 4 and cross out v minus 5. And we are just left with an 8 equals. This is an understood multiplication symbol here. We've got multiplication over addition, so we need to distribute. V minus 4 times v minus 5 times 1 over v minus 4. Right here. Plus this times this term, 2 over v minus 5. And to get full credit for written work, you would have to write out the step like this. I am testing to see that you can write out the process instead of asking for you to write it out in words, the entire process. So that's what I am looking for. So now what do? We work within each term. We can cancel the v minus 4s. We look at this term. We can cancel the v minus 5s. So we have this 8. This first term here is v minus 5 times 1, which is v minus 5. Over here we have v minus 4 times 2. You can either distribute the 2 through from this side, or you can imagine a 2 is here and get 2v minus 8. And now we're down to a linear equation. We want to solve for v. So we're going to combine like terms. We have 1v plus 2v, which is a total of 3v, minus 5 minus 8, which is minus 13. And I copied the 8 equals here. So we now want to get v by itself, so let's move the 13. The opposite of subtracting is adding 13 to both sides. Let's do that. 8 plus 13 is 21 equals 3v. Opposite of multiplying is dividing. Let's divide both sides by 3. 21 divided by 3 is 7. You want to make sure you're checking in all denominators, and what you want is all denominators. You want to keep this in mind. All denominators are not 0. If this v equals 7, if I got 0.
I was the only one taking that exam at that time.
Do you have a question? Did somebody have a question? Are you trying to ask me a question? So what I'm trying to get at here with this v equals 7, if this were v equals, say, 4, if I put in 4 right here, I'd get 4 minus 4, which is 0. Cannot have division by 0. You cannot have 0 in the denominator. That means we have division by 0, which is undefined. In that case, there would be no solutions because you would be out of possibilities. So make sure you're checking that all denominators are not 0. So what do you have to check in this case? You have to put 7 in for v. 7 minus 4 is 3. That is not 0. 7 minus 5 is 2, not 0. You're good because this is just v minus 4 times v minus 5 over here. So you're good. Just watch out for division by 0. Any questions on solving a rational equation? It's rational because you've got polynomials upstairs and polynomials downstairs in all your terms. Let's take a look at topic number 6 here, written work topic number 6. Remember, it's better to show too much written work than not enough. If you're on the border, I would show more. Now we have a radical equation. And the first thing I want to say about this is when the opposite of square rooting is squaring, but squaring has the potential of introducing an extra solution. That is not a solution. So you will need to check your solution, your possible solutions all the way to get full credit for this problem. So the opposite of square rooting is squaring. So please, you're not allowed to take control of the screen, so I won't give you control of the screen. Since I need control of the screen, under special circumstances, I might allow you to do that, like in a conference. So you want to make sure you're not doing those kind of things, because if I catch you, then you might not be allowed to come to class or something. I would have to talk with the NWAC folks about that. Or I might have to change your priority level in the course or something like that. So in Teams, so you want to make sure you want to stay away from accidentally playing with the controls or whatever, or looking around the software. So let's go on with this problem. So the first thing we want to do is square both sides, since it's the opposite of square rooting in some sense. So we're going to take this side, put it in parentheses and square it. Take square root of this, put it in parentheses and square that. So sometimes in math, it's what can you do? This 2 means we want 2 of the base, w minus 5 multiplied together. Squaring undoes square rooting, so we just get this radicand inside. So I copied that, what's inside over. So now I want to, what can we do with these? We can FOIL because we have 2 terms times 2 terms. Subtraction is just adding a negative, so we can consider these to be terms. So we want to FOIL. First 2, w times w squared, outer 2, minus 5w, inner 2, minus 5w, that's a total of minus 10w. And last 2, minus a minus is a plus, 5 times 5 is 25. Equals, this copied over. Now if we combine these two, we get, these are like terms because they have the same variable portion to the same exponent. And so we have negative 5 of those and negative 5 more, giving us a total of negative 10w. And then plus 25 copied over right there on that side. So we want to get everything on one side because to solve a quadratic equation, which is what we have now, the highest power is a 2 on either side. We want to get it set equal to 0 so we can use either the quadratic formula or factoring to figure out what the w's are. So we're going to move everything to this side. The opposite of subtracting, adding, opposite of adding, subtracting. So there's going to be 0 left on this side. Over here, I like to write what I'm adding or subtracting to both sides in a like term column, if you will. Constants are like, so we're going to put those there, or that negative 43 there. And now what do we have left? W squared minus 10 plus 7 is minus 3. And plus 25 minus 43 is equal to 0. So you could use the quadratic formula if you would prefer, but I would encourage you to practice that a few times in this problem type before you do that, or you can use factoring. So we've got factoring here, so let's just go over it this way. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 1 times negative 18, that add to give us negative 3. Those would be 3 and negative 6. Put the 3 in one and the 6 in the other. Of course, put W in each one, and then put the 3 in one and negative 6 in the other. Now set each factor equal to 0, which is I did here. Move the numbers to the other side. So we get W equals negative 3. Move this to the other side, we get W equals 6. Now we need to check an original equation. You can see I've crossed out. So you want to show the work that as well. You don't just want to cross one out. You want to show the work that proves that that doesn't work to get full credit on a written work problem. So what are we checking in the original equation? Let's go back up to the original equation and look at it. I went too far. Here's our original equation. W minus 5 equals the square root of negative 7W plus 43. So let's go back down right here. We are checking W equals negative 3. So W comes first. We're putting negative 3 in for W. Minus 5 equals square root negative 7. Then there's a W, so we're putting negative 3 in for that, plus 43. This is negative 3 minus 5, which is negative 8. Equals square root. Negative 7 times negative 3 is positive 21, plus 43 is 64. The square root of 64 is 8. Negative 8 equals 8 is false. So we have to cross this out as a possible solution. It's not a solution. Over here, we want to check W equals 6 in the same way. W comes up first. We put in 6 for it. Minus 5 is 1. Equals the square root of negative 7 times W. W is 6, so that 6 goes in there. Plus 43. This is negative 42 plus 43, which is the square root of 1 inside. Square root of 1 equals 1. 1 equals 1 is true. So the only solution we have is W equals 6. And so we write in, Alex gave us W equals, so we just type in the 6. Any questions on this particular topic? And let's take a look at the last written work topic. Here we don't have a quadratic, we have a 4th degree polynomial. Actually, if we get it all on one side, we would have a 4th degree polynomial. And that means there's a likelihood of 4 different solutions. What do we do with this? Especially so early in our college algebra course. We turn it in the answer, turn it into a quadratic equation. So the way we turn this into a quadratic equation is we look, I should have really moved the plus 36 over here first, but you can get away without doing it. It's not perfect. You know, I'm a perfectionist when it comes to math because that's what I teach. So we really want the plus 36 over on this side. And then the equals 0 on this side. So I'll just do my best and sneak it in there. See if I can get that. Yeah. So let's just look at it like that. Plus 36 equals 0. That's the preferred way of looking at it. So we want to look at first of all, we want the powers to descend. 4, 2, and then the constant plus 36 over here. Want the powers to descend. And then we want to look at this variable portion of the middle term, not the number in front, not the coefficient, the variable portion, only the portion that has the variable in it. Now, it may have a number or two in it, that's okay, but this coefficient out front, we don't want to use that. So we want our u, we're going to let u be equal to y squared. We can't use y, so we choose some other variable. Typically, we use u for substitutions in math. So u equals y squared. So this y squared came from here because it's a variable portion of the middle term. Then somehow we need to get a 4 in all of this. How can we get a 4 in all of this? Well, if you had y squared times y squared, you would have y to the 4th, because you'd have y times y, and then times y, you'd have y to the 4th. So the way we can do this is square both sides. So we're going to square this side over here and this side. So we get u squared over here. And then when we square this side, we write down y squared, put it in parentheses, and square it again. Now, if you remember from exponent days, power times power is you multiply the exponents and get y to the 4th. Or you could write this out. You could write this out. You could say what's in the base is y times y. But I need to multiply 2 of what's in the base together. So I need y times y, and then another one of those, y times y, which is y to the 4th. So that's another way of looking at it. Now, why is this so nice? Because this is going to turn our given equation into a quadratic. So let's see how that will work. We now have y to the 4th equals u squared. Here's our y to the 4th. We are going to take that out and put in u squared for it. Then we have this minus 13, which we're just going to copy down. And then we have y squared. But we let y squared be equal to u. So we're going to put in u for y squared. And then we had this plus 36. And then we have equals 0. I didn't write it in, but yes, I did. So we have equals 0. So that's how we get our equation turned into a quadratic equation that we know how to solve. Later, we're going to have to convert back to y's, though. And keep in mind, this 4 suggests that we have 4 different solutions. We at least have to, if we don't have 4, we at least have to have evidence of why we don't have 4. So we have this equation. So let's factor. Or you could use the quadratic formula if you wish. We're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give us 1 times 36, which is 36, that add to negative 13. Those are negative 4 times negative 9. We get 36 and add them together to get negative 13. So we put a u here and here, and we put minus 4 in one of these and minus 9 in the other and get equal to 0. So now we set each factor equal to 0. U minus 4 equals 0. U minus 9 equals 0, and solve. We get u equals 4 when we move this to the other side. And when we move this to the other side, we get u equals 9. Now, what is u? We need a relationship between u and y. What is u? U equals y squared. So we can take out the u's, put in y squared. So here's our u. I put in y squared. Before the red, I put in y squared. I took out this u, put in y squared. Now we need to solve. So we want to undo squaring. To undo squaring, we use the square root. However, we have to put plus or minus the square root of 4 in this case. We have to put plus or minus with one side. That's why in the quadratic formula you see a plus or minus in it. And we're working with quadratic equations here. So you want to put a plus or minus with it. And we don't put it with the side that has a variable because we're trying to solve for that variable. So we want square root of this side equals plus or minus the square root of 4. I didn't have enough room to squeeze in that square root. So we've got plus or minus the square root of 4 here, which is plus or minus the square root of 4 is 2. And on this side, the square root undoes the squaring. So those go away. So they don't go away. The square root and the squaring go away, but the y is still left, is what I want to say. So we have y equals square root. Y equals, let me correct myself, plus or minus the square root of 4, which is plus or minus 2. And over here, if we do the same thing, take the square root of this side, use plus or minus the square root of that side, we get y equals plus or minus the square root of 9, which is 3. So we have 4 solutions. We have plus or minus 2, plus or minus 3. Alex wants us to write them out one by one. 2, negative 2, 3, negative 3. Any questions on this particular topic? So this concludes the presentation of the 7 written work topics that you're going to see for sure on test 1, and you will be required to submit your written work to Canvas for these topics. And very little, if any, credit will be given for an answer here. Probably none. I'm not looking for the answers really. I'm looking for the work. So these are the work only problems. Then you've got about half the test is for the work and about half the test is for the answers. So let me come back up. Does anybody have any questions to ask me at this time about anything we've talked about so far? So let's go back down and start talking about the objective on lines part 1. So let's talk about lines part 1. So this should be pretty familiar for most of you. And it's as objectives go, it's I would say one of the easier objectives. We don't have a lot of time to talk about it. I did take the most challenging problem out of this objective and move it to the next objective. So I know you all have a test coming up, and I know that I didn't have as much time as I would need to present that. So I took it and moved it to the next one. So we are going to talk about lines now. Part 1, we have a part 2 in the next objective. But to talk about lines, we really need to talk about slope. We can write every line in 2 forms, y equals mx plus b, or y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. Either form requires us to talk about slope. They both involve the slope. So we use m for slope, so m is equal to slope. Slope has a number of different interpretations or ways to use it, and all of them mean slope. So slope can be viewed as rise over run, viewed as y. If you've got 2 ordered pairs lying around, it can be viewed as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It can be viewed as change in y over change in x. And it can be viewed as average rate of change of y with respect to x. Now, this average rate, important. This rate, important. You see, if you see those terms, think slope. So let's talk about slope is really a measure of steepness of a line. I have 2 lines right here. I didn't put the arrowheads on them. So which one is steeper? Which one would be harder to climb up if it were a grade of a mountain? This one. That's steeper than this. This is flatter. This is steeper. This is flatter. So we're looking at some way to measure steepness of that line, of those lines. That's what we're doing when we're asking for slope. So if you've got slope and the y-intercept, then you've got a unique line, which is really neat. So let's take a look now at these two equations of lines, and the slope turns out to be, as you probably know, is a coefficient, the number in front of x. Slope is a number. It's a measure of steepness. It does not include the x. So this equation's in mx plus b form. So we have y equals slope, m is slope, times x plus this number 2. That's the y coordinate of the y-intercept. Then we have this equation we want to look at. Y2 equals, so y equals slope, which is -3, times x. Remember, this is y equals mx plus b form. So m is -3, x, and our b is +6. That's the y coordinate of the y-intercept. And having that equation represents a unique line. So I want to know the slope of this line is 1/3, and the slope of this line is -3. What is the relationship between those two lines? So let me take a look at my graphing calculator here. I graphed those two lines on my graphing calculator, and that is what I got. Now, it's a teeny bit distorted, perhaps, but when you look at these lines, you notice, number one, the positive sloping line goes up from left to right. The negative sloping line goes down from left to right. How do these lines compare to each other, or how are they related? Think about a right angle here. There's really a right angle here. It's a bit distorted because the calculator appears longer than it, the screen appears distorted. It looks a little longer in this direction than in this direction. So, but these are right angles here. These two lines are perpendicular. Perpendicular. These are an example of perpendicular lines. So what is the relationship between these two slopes? This is leading us to if you know the slope of one line, how do you get the slope of the perpendicular line? So let's start with 1/3. And what do we want to do first? Notice one of these is a positive slope, the other is a negative slope. So we want to change the sign. So we've got 1/3. We're going to change the sign on it. And if we change the sign, we're going to get -1/3. And now we want to flip it over. So if we flip this over, we get -3/1. And that gives us -3, which is the slope of this line. And that's how you can determine the slope. If you know the slope of one line, that's how you can determine the slope of a perpendicular line. You change the sign of the given line, let's say, and you flip it over to get the slope of the perpendicular line. Parallel lines have the same slope because they have the same grade or steepness to them. So these lines are parallel, they never intersect. And they always have the same steepness. Any two parallel lines has the same steepness or slope. So if you know the slope of one parallel line, you know the slope of all lines that are parallel to that line. and it's the same slope. So let's take a look at some problems here. Let's just start by finding the slope given 2 points on a line. So here are the two ordered pairs for points on the line. The first one I'm going to label as x and call it point 1, x sub 1, comma, I guess, y sub 1. And the second point I'm going to label x sub 2, y sub 2. You don't want an x sub 1 with a y sub 2. That won't work. So you want to make sure you designated one of these has point 1 and using only subscripts of point of 1, and then designating the other point as point number 2 and only using subscripts of 2. So now we're ready to plug in and find the steepness of this line. So I would use the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 for this. I do this because I want to be accurate. If there's negative signs involved, sometimes we think we've got the right number, but we missed a negative sign. So I want to be accurate. Y2 is -8. And then we have a minus sign. Y1 is 7. Divided by x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is -4. -8 minus 7 is -15. 2 minus a minus 4 is 2 plus 4, which is 6. Now this reduces, so you want to reduce your fractions. You can either use MathFrac on the graphing calculator, or you can write 15 as 3 times 5 and 6 as 3 times 2, cancel out the 2's, and get -5/2. So you could do it that way. Any questions on this? This is just kind of a simple problem. Now let's take a look here. And what the point of this topic is to find slopes of horizontal and vertical lines. And I will give you a hint. There's either going to be a 0 or an undefined involved, or both. So find the slope of the line passing through these 2 points. Again, we label them. Do the same thing. Y2 is -3 minus y1, which is -3, over x2, which is 5, minus x1, which is -9. Minus -3, minus a minus is a plus, -3 plus 3 is 0. 5 minus a minus is 5 plus 9, which is 14. 0 divided by 14 is 0. It's okay to have 0 in the numerator as long as you do not have 0 in the denominator. That is equal to 0. Now what happens here, if you notice, we've got that the y's changed, had 0 change. So when the y's have 0 change, the y's don't change, you have a horizontal line. That's because you could take any point on the line and trace it over to the y-axis, and you would get the same y value for each and every point. And then lastly, we can play the same game with part 2, and what happens is a 0 ends up in the denominator, and division by 0 is undefined. And I'm sorry for the few little red dots here. I was playing around with this earlier today. And when we have a vertical line, and if you look here, there's no change in the x's. We have 7 minus 7. x2 and x1, x2 and x1 are exactly the same. When you have no change in the x's, that's when you have undefined. And when you have no change in the y's up here, look, see there's no change in the y's. That's when you have a slope of 0. So the slope in this case is 0, the slope in this case is undefined. So any questions on this particular topic? So now we're going to look at find the initial amount and rate of change. Rate is slope. That's an important note. Rate is slope. So that's a key word in this word problem. Rate is slope. So a machine at a bakery is pouring out flour. The graph shows the amount of flour in grams remaining versus time in minutes. So I want to be aware of what's on the y-axis, which is amount of flour, and what's on the x-axis over here, which is time in minutes. First question, what is the amount of flour in the machine at 0 minutes? So 0 minutes is right here. What's the amount of flour? So I have to go up the y-axis until I hit a point on the y-axis, and I hit a point at 600. 600 grams is the answer. The ordered pair associated with this important point, the x-coordinate is 0 because I could trace it down to the x-axis and see that that we get 0. The y-coordinate I can take we're already over here. We can clearly see that the y-coordinate of that point is 600. So this is the ordered pair associated with that. Now we know we're going to probably be asked a question about the rate, so we need another point on our graph. You want to make sure you're picking points that where the graph, this line segment, I'll call it here, is intersects one of these light blue colored vertical lines and one light colored horizontal line, just to make sure you get it right, because if you're a little off, Alex will probably mark you wrong. So that's what I look at, these grid lines, and I pick a corner point of the grid line is what I do. And that's what I did here. I picked a corner point at this grid line, and I want the x coordinate straight down 1. I want the y coordinate straight over 420. That's how I got that ordered pair. So let's go look at the next sheet for a moment and see what we need to do. So we want to find the amount of flour in the machine at 0 minutes. We did that. We want to know what happens as time increases. What happens to the amount of flour in the machine? As time increases, what's happening to the amount of flour? It's going down. The y values along the y-axis here are going down. So it's decreasing. So as time increases, the amount of flour in the machine decreases. At what rate? Now, this word decreasing means that if you have that you're going to have a negative sign, and it's incorporated in this word decreasing. They don't want you to write a negative sign over here. So I just took the points that we just looked at in the previous just previously, and I used these. I labeled them x1, y1, x2, y2. So the slope, the rate is the slope. The slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2, 420. y1, 600 with the minus sign from here. x2, 1. So 1 here, minus sign here. x1, 0. We've got 1 minus 0 here. That's nice. That's just 1. 420 minus 600. 420 minus 600 is 100 minus 600 is really negative 180, but that negative sign is incorporated in this word decreasing. So they just want 180 here. So any questions on this particular topic? So I marked this one up pretty well. I will do one of these for you. Word problem involving average rate of change. Again, slope. So let's do the second one. Find the average rate of change for the height from 6.6 seconds to 13.2 seconds. So this table here is really a t-table. Here's the t. It consists of ordered pairs. 0, 0 is an ordered pair, 13.2, 0 is an ordered pair, 8.8, 44 is an ordered pair. Find the average rate of change for the height from 6.6 seconds to 13.2 seconds. Let's focus at 6.6 seconds first. 6.6 seconds is right here in the seconds column. So I put a big red ellipse or whatever you want to call it around it. And this is the ordered pair that we're going to use. One of them, 6.6, 198. Now, what else do we want to do? 6.6 seconds to 13.2 seconds. Here's the seconds column. Here's 13.2. So I took green and encircled this entire ordered pair, 13.2, 0. We want to use those two, this ordered pair and that ordered pair, to do part B. So I copied down 6.6, 198. Right here, of course, with a comma in the middle. And then I copied down 13.2, 0 here. Labeled this with X1, Y1, this one with X2, Y2. Now we're going to use Y2, which is 0, minus Y1, 198, over X2, 13.2, minus X1, which is 6.6. Okay, so now that's our slope. That's our average rate of change. Slope is the average rate of change. In the numerator, we get negative 198. If we take 13.2 minus 6.6 on our calculator, we will get 6.6. 6.6 twice is 12, and then 6 plus 6 is 1.2, 13.2. Yeah, that makes sense. And what we'll end up with if we divide this on our calculators is negative 30. So the average rate of change is negative 30 meters per second. So that's how you can do that problem. And of course, part A works similarly, but instead of using red and green, we use purple and blue. So let's take a look at topic. This topic, find slopes of lines parallel and perpendicular to a line given in a certain form. So in order to be able to identify the slope of a perpendicular line or a parallel line, you want to make sure you put this in y equals mx plus b form. So that means we need to solve for y. First, we're going to move the 7x. So we're going to subtract 7x from both sides. We're going to be left with 2y on this side, minus 7x came over. We write the x term first, and then the minus 3. Divide both sides by 2 to get y by itself, and we get y equals negative 7 divided by 2. And I put the x separately, not up in the numerator, because we want to be able to clearly identify the slope. Minus, and then I took 3 and divided it by 2. So the slope is negative 7. It's just the coefficient, the number in front of x, negative 7. Parallel lines have the same slope. So if we want to find the slope of any line parallel to our given line, it's going to be negative 7/2. So what is the slope of a line parallel to this line? Negative 7/2. What is the slope of a line perpendicular? To find the slope of a perpendicular line, we saw this earlier, you change the sign and flip it over. So we want to change the sign on this. That negative 7/2 will now change to 7/2 because we want to change from negative to positive. And then we want to flip it over. So if we flip this over, we get 2/7. That's the slope of the perpendicular line, 2/7. And that's the answer. Let me see what I want to do. We're not doing this. I move this topic to the next objective after lines part 1. And this is another one of those, so we can't do that. And this is about finding x and y intercepts. So to find an x-intercept, you want to let the y, the opposite. So every point has an ordered pair associated with it. The first coordinate's the x-coordinate, the second coordinate's the y-coordinate. If you want to find the x, you let the opposite one, which is the y, be 0, and you solve for x. So we're going to take this 0, plug it in for y here, and we get negative 2x plus 8 times 0 equals negative 12. This term is 0. Negative 2x plus 0 is negative 2x still. So we're down to negative 2x equals negative 12. And we can divide both to get this x by itself. We can now divide by negative 2, both sides. These guys, negative over a negative, positive. 2 divided by 2 is 1 times x is just x. These guys, negative over negative is positive. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So we get x equals 6. An x-intercept is simply where the graph intersects the x-axis. Y-intercept is simply where the graph intersects the y-axis. The process is reversed because for this point here, what is 0? It's not the y-coordinate because the y-coordinate is negative 1.5. The coordinate that's 0, if you trace this up to the x-axis, is 0. Okay? X is 0. Y is negative 1.5. So you want to start by letting your x be 0 in this case. So x equals 0. We plug 0 into our original equation. That will wipe that entire term out. So you get a 0 there, plus 8y is just 8y equals negative 12. So we're really down to 8y equals negative 12. And we divide both sides by 8 and reduce it using math frac. We get y equals negative 3/2. So the y coordinate is negative 3/2. We don't have that where we enter it. So x coordinate 6, the y coordinate is negative 3/2. These notes are in ALEKS and you can get there by using instructor resources. So I finished what I wanted to finish today. And let me come back up. And I want to retake the attendance because I'm remembering to do so, and I want to make sure that everybody gets their due credit. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this, and I need to do a different screenshot because this is very well attended. There I go. So I am done. You are free to leave the conference. You're welcome to stay around for a bit to ask questions. So feel free to leave, and I hope you all stay healthy and safe. Good luck on the test. Enjoy your weekend, and the next time I will see you in a conference is 1 week from today. Bye for now. Feel free to leave and feel free to stick around, whatever you need. And I'm going to stop the recording.